Hey, this video is on the 5-number summary and outliers. So the 5-number summary is a way to analyze a set of data that gives us information about how varied the data is as far as like what the range of the data is and what numbers divide the data into quartiles, into quarters. So it tells us what number divides the bottom 25% of the data and the middle 50% of the data and the top 75% of the data. And write this down. The 5-number summary gives us the minimum value, and quartile 1, which for short we write Q1, and this is the lower 25%, the number that splits the lower 25% of the data, or we can think of it as like a quarter. Median, which another name for that is actually quartile 2. This should be a 1, quartile 1. Q2, and that splits the data in half. So 50% of the data is to the left of the median and 50% of the data is to the right. It also gives us quartile 3, or for short Q3, and that number is a number where 75% of the values are to the left of that number. And so it's kind of the 3/4 marker of a data set. And then the last thing that the 5-number summary gives us is the maximum number, the highest number. So you can see why it's called the 5-number summary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 pieces of information from the 5-number summary. So this is how you do it. This is how you find the 5-number summary by hand. You have to take a set of data, like so, and you need to put it in order from smallest to greatest. So I want you to pause the video and do that yourself on your paper. I want you to take this number, or this data set right here, and put it in order from smallest to greatest. Once you've done that, press play. Okay, welcome back, and hopefully your numbers are in the same order as mine. And to find the 5-number summary, well, when we put it in order, that tells us a lot. That gives us 2 of the 3 values, which would be the minimum and maximum. So the smallest number is 1, that's the minimum. The largest number is 40, that's the maximum. Now if you had to find the median, you would work from the outside in, right? So do that on your own and press play once you do that, okay? Okay, so the median of this data set is in between 9 and 9. Well, the mean of 9 and 9 is 9, so that's easy. The median is 9. Now to find quartile 1 and quartile 3, let's do quartile 1 first. To find quartile 1, you would find the median of the data to the left of the median. Which means we would take, if this is where the median is, right here, then we would take the median of the numbers to the left of it for quartile 1. So let's do that right now. We got 1 and 9, and 8 and 1, and 7 and 1, and 6 and 3, and the median of the lower half of the data, or quartile 1, would be in between 5 and 5, which is 5. And then for quartile 3, we'd go 9 and 40, 9 and 23, 11 and 19, 12 and 15, and it would be the number in between 13 and 14, which is 13.5. So there you go. There is your 5-number summary of this set of data. So 25% of the data is below 5. Which means 75% of the data is above 5. 50% of the data is below and above the median of 9. And then 75% of the data is below 13.5. 25% of it is above it. So that is what the 5-number summary is, and it can tell us a lot about the data. Another thing that it can tell us or help us find is an outlier. So let me show you how that helps you, how the 5-number summary helps you find outliers. So an outlier in a data set, if we have a bunch of data, and I'm just drawing dots to represent data, We have a bunch of data kind of clustered together, and then we have one piece of data all the way out here. It's just unusual from the norm. Then this number right here is most likely an outlier. And numerically, we can discover if a number is an outlier by using the 5-number summary. That's one way to determine if a number is an outlier. And the formula for that, and you have to memorize this actually, the number for that is if we take Q1 and we subtract 1.5 times Q3 minus Q1, which actually is called the IQR, or the interquartile range. And we can also take Q3 and add 1.5 times the IQR. And if there's any number below this one or above this one, then that number is an outlier. So using the set of data that we just found the 5-number summary of, this is what it would look like. We would do Q1, which was 5, and we would subtract 1.5 times 13.5 minus 5, and then we would take, God, I can't write. We would take 13.5 and add 1.5 times 13.5 minus 5. And what we get is 2.75 and 26.25. Is that right? Actually, this one is negative 7.75. I don't know how I got that. So those are the two numbers that if we have anything below negative 7.75 or above 26.25, then that number is an outlier. Well, I know we don't have any negative numbers, so that's out. But I know that I remember that we had 40. And since 40 is greater than 26.25, then 40 is an outlier. So if we were doing some sort of analysis of this data, we would want to state that 40 is an outlier and try to figure out why that happened, and then most likely ignore that number and then recalculate anything that we're doing with that data set without the number 40, because it's too unusual, it's too outside the norm. So I want to show you how to find the 5-number summary using your calculator. Most likely you're going to be using your calculator to find the 5-number summary, just because we'll have large sets of data and it's going to be much easier to plug everything into your calculator, push a few buttons, and your calculator does all this stuff for you without error. The only place where we could make an error is entering it into our calculator. And anytime you enter data into your calculator, you just want to be extra careful. So when you have your calculator, you want to press Stat and then Edit, and you want to enter data into a list. You can enter it into any list, but I typically use L1 unless I have stuff in L1 that I want to keep. So I'm going to keep this data set and just analyze that. I don't remember what this was about, but it's from a previous problem. So I have a bunch of numbers in L1. So to find the 5-number summary, once you enter the data, you press Stat again, and you move over to Calc, and then you click on 1var stats. 1var stats is one variable statistics. If you have a TI-84 Plus, it's going to prompt you and say what list you want to put it in. If you have another calculator, it will just default to doing L1, and then if you want to put it in a different list, then you would have to second and then say what list you want it to analyze. But I'm going to go down to calculate since I want to use L1. And it gives you a bunch of information, but we're going to scroll down with the arrow and see that on the bottom it gives you the minimum value, the quartile 1, the median, quartile 3, and maximum. Pretty simple stuff, pretty awesome that your calculator does it for you. After you watch this video, what I want you to do is just find your calculator and put a list of random numbers into L1. And then just practice doing Stat, Calc, 1var stats, and scrolling down and seeing the 5-number summary. Okay, that's it for this video. I will see you later. Thanks. Bye.